welcome to session number 2 of our volleyball state clinic. Huge presenter, and on a personal level, I've had the opportunity to officiate with KK. And so she is a tremendous basketball official as well. And when Dana introduces her, she'll definitely explain that. But just a huge honor to have KK here with us and in the volleyball realm. So with that, I'll hand it over to Dana so she can introduce you.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you got a few minutes to stretch your legs. And before I go into Kaili's official bio, I just want to kind of explain where I had the opportunity to meet her, or e-meet her, I guess. We were on a panel together for the National Association of Sports Officials Summit, and it didn't take me long to realize I wanted her to present to you all because she just drops solid gold when she speaks. So I think you'll all enjoy her as much as I did. She's an absolute rock star. And even though we haven't met in person, I feel like we connected on a really cool level. And I'm just pumped to have her here with us this morning. So there's my informal intro, but now I'm going to go into her bio. So Kaili Kimura grew up in Thousand Oaks, California, and was a multi-sport athlete in high school. She was a 4-year starter on her Final Four collegiate volleyball team at Cal State University of Los Angeles, where she graduated as the MVP of her team and Scholar Athlete of the Year with a Bachelor of Science degree in International Business and a minor in Economics. Kaili also enjoyed beach volleyball, playing a few years on the AVP. She became a multi-sport official in volleyball and basketball with the Los Angeles High School unit. She currently works Division I in both sports and is a FIBA international basketball official for the United States. She earned her national PAVO rating in volleyball and works in 5 conferences: the Big 12, Big West, Mountain West, Pac-12, and West Coast conferences. In basketball, she works in 7 conferences: Big Sky, Big West, Mountain West, Pac-12, Sun Belt, West Coast, and Western Athletic Conference, with numerous conference tournament honors in the Big West and Big Sky and an NCAA appearance in 2016. In volleyball, Kaili began her NCAA tournament run in 2013, earning numerous first and second round honors until her regional appearance in 2017. Since then, she has worked consecutive regionals as the second referee, culminating to her first Final Four and championship match at the 2020 NCAA National Championships in Omaha. And I think our NASO summit was like a few days after that. So I think she was still on a high from that. I don't know how, but she also has a career as a financial professional. I don't know when she finds the time, while also raising her 9-year-old son and being a loving daughter and caregiver to her 78-year-old mother. So Kaili, I'd love to know how you have extra hours in the day, and we are excited to welcome you to New Mexico virtually this morning. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dana, and thank you, Nate. I love it, Nate. I do remember you now that I see your face, sometimes putting a face with the name until you see the person. You're like, oh yeah, Nate, great. And I love that you're using my nickname. You are definitely welcome to do so. And so are all of you. It makes it easier, right? I think that's also how people remember my name. A lot of times I just say, if my nickname's KK, then it's Kaili. So it makes it easy, right? So lovely to see everybody here. Thank you for being with me this morning. I am honored to speak with you today, and let's go ahead and get started. But first, I did meet Dana just a little while ago at the panel we were doing for NASO, and she was our gracious host, and her energy definitely emanated with me. So I was honored to be asked to join you today. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen. So I have been asked to speak about communication today. Speak about communication, that's funny. Partners, line judges, table crew, coaches, and players. Now, in terms of communication, we talk about elements of personal communication, and there is a rule of 73855. It's a concept concerning the communication of emotions. The rule states that 7% of meaning is communicated through spoken word, 38% through tone of voice, and 55% through body language. It was developed by psychology professor Albert Mehrabian at the University of California, Los Angeles, who laid out the concept in his 1971 book, silent messages. So I bring this up because what does our body language say? Not only in officiating, but life in general, right? And our daily interactions. If your facial expressions are pained and you can't maintain eye contact, you're probably communicating your insecurity to your counterparts, no matter what you say. So as we go through this presentation and my slides, I'd like you to keep in mind not only what I am saying, but I want you to imagine yourself out on the court and think of when we put some of these things into action. What is your body language saying? How is your tone? So much of what we do is not what comes out of our mouth, but it's just how we're perceived. And so much of that is just how we hold ourselves, right? So one of the things it also says in this concept is an assertive voice is declarative and typically counterproductive. And an accommodating voice gently promotes collaboration and should be used most of the time. Well, how do we do this in officiating? When it's our job to be assertive, right? So one of the things I can suggest is just work on being a really great listener rather than an information giver. So tap into your listening skills, assess how your counterpart is feeling, and adjust your nonverbal communication in response. Now, I didn't say necessarily verbal, because sometimes our nonverbal is just we're accepting. I'm hearing you. Sure, I'm not necessarily going to change this call, but if you could show them you're listening, that is helpful for your overall perception and your body of work. So mindset, let's talk a little about coming into the game and having some preparation. And one of the things I talk about and I try to do is come in with an intention. An intention creates our reality, right? So when you come into the game, and I also love this quote on the side here that says, when intention is clear, so is the way. So one of the things we want to do is we want all of our games to go smoothly. That's our intention. One of the things I do before every game, and usually during the national anthem, is I pray. I pray that the game will go smoothly, that all the players will, and everybody in here will be healthy and leave feeling better than when they came in the game, be injury free, that our crew is making correct calls with consistency, confidence, clarity, and where the coaches can focus on coaching their teams and not on us. And also that the crew works to the best of their ability, and that everybody has love and good sportsmanship in their hearts and behaviors. How much of that can we control? Not a lot, right? I guess that's why I'm praying about it. But what part is in our control? The parts that are in our control are preparation, right? And how we communicate in terms of with our crews, pre-game, pre-match, being very specific in our communication, controlling the parts we can by being prepared. So I want you also, when we talk about what we're going to go through with these next slides, how we can prepare, how we can be specific, how we can help make our game go smoothly with the things that we can control. So I split the partner, line judges, table crew, coaches, players, communication into these 4 categories, which we'll cover thoroughly. I'm going to give you an overload of information, and hopefully you can glean something that you can take with you into season that will help you. So it's the pre-match, the pre-match, during the match, and post-match. And we'll talk about how we communicate through each party that's involved. So the pre-match, it starts here. And I say it's a pre-match because it usually starts about a week out. When we check in with our partners, we also cross-check Arbiter or whatever signing platform you use. And you also make sure that the time is matching with your schedule that you see on the website. And if that's not happening, you make sure that you correspond with your assigner and make sure your crew is up to date on what the actual game time is. So I usually do a confirmation with email or text because I like to have it in writing. Now, I usually do that about a 1 week out. Just know my caveat to this is that none of what I'm saying is by law. It's just a practice that I've learned and it's helped me, but make sure that you default to what your assigners say, okay? Now, I also know that for the R2 and line judges, I like to wait for my R1 to send it out and not be over anxious because they are the crew chief. And if I don't hear from them, then at 6 or 5 days out, I send my itinerary of when I will be showing up to the game. And I don't say what I'm wearing. I let them say what they're wearing. And then if in their reply, they don't say the shirt color, then I'll ask what shirt color. And then if I don't hear back about 4 to 3 days, that's when I'll probably shoot a call or a text to verify. And then if I don't hear back, then about a couple days before, I'll make sure to contact my assigner. Now, the info I provide in the pre-P match is, of course, where the COVID protocols have switched a lot of things up. So this is where specificity comes in mind, right? We might have to meet not in the gym. We might have to, there might not be locker rooms available for us, but if there are, we find that out ahead of time. If there are, we could say we'll meet in a locker room, or sometimes we'll meet outside or in the parking lot, right? So these are things that you want to specify ahead of time. Sometimes it's just going to be courtside. The facility may be limited because of COVID. And then when, of course, sometimes you say, hey, I'd like to meet in the parking lot, but not everybody gets there at the same time. So you and your R2 or R1, whichever part you're playing, might meet out in the parking lot, but everybody else is going to meet you courtside, and that's fine too. So sometimes you have to be specific in terms of who and when. And if everyone's going to meet together, great. Sometimes you could do your pre-match in the parking lot before you even enter. And then shirt color, of course, the R1 is the one who provides that information. And then the scorers, if you can get a hold of them, they sometimes really appreciate that because they want to match the crew, and they have different shirt colors as well, because a lot of them are also officials as well. So if you do have someone that's connected to those crews, it's not a bad idea to reach out, and it also gets crew cohesion. So now we're in the pre-match. We talk about the event manager, your game manager. We want to visit special situations with them, such as if there's any promotions, if there's cheerleaders or a roaming mascot, and that they have to stay on their side, and you want them to help out with that. If there's going to be any media timeouts, television, what the length of those timeouts are. The red hat is the person that coordinates those timeouts, so you can't start until that person is ready. And are we able to end the timeouts early? A lot of times with television, you are not just the media timeout, but all the timeouts. So you just go all the way through duration, but that helps when you have the communication with the clock operator. And timing between sets 2 and 3, is it going to be 3 or 5 minutes? Again, I'm speaking from my collegiate rules. You, of course, will have your own set of rules, but it's good to have this clarification ahead of time. And of course, CRS, but we're not going to go into a lot of that with this presentation. And our flags provided, you bring your own. Some people prefer that, some rely on the ones that are there. Most professional people in the collegiate have their own flag, so it's always good to bring them in. And you also want to know from the event manager if there's going to be a 3 or 4 ball rotation, just so you know how you're going to coordinate with the ball crew and how you're also going to communicate with them as the R2 and pre-match with them. And some of the examples that I give my event managers so I can be prepared is I'll tell them there's not much I'm going to ask of you if there is an unruly fan or a situation where we hear derogatory or comments that are unacceptable, that I will just ask that someone go and sit with them before necessarily removing them. And hopefully that will calm down the situation. So you want to give them an idea of some of the things that you're going to ask of them to do for you if a situation occurs. And in that, you need to know where they are. So you're going to want to know, you're going to want to know, where will you be sitting? Because it's the worst thing that if you are coming in this prepared and then something happens and now you're looking around for where they are, that's kind of tough as well. So you'll know that if you have a backup, if you can't find them, that you also can talk to the announcer and have that as your backup to find out where the game manager and have them come to the table. But hopefully you'll know where they're sitting. But be prepared with these things in your mind, right? So now, pre-match, line judges, ground rules. Sometimes the line judge is the person that has the most experience with the facility because they've been there most often. So you want to glean from them what they know as what some of the boundaries are, what some of the overhead obstructions are, what some of the restrictions are in terms of distance from the court. Sure, you're going to check out the court, but you're going to also, if you haven't yet, or if you talk with them, ask them what their experience is with the facility. And come one, come all. This is one of the things I say from the R1 as they're doing their pre-match with the line judges is if I call one over, I'd like everyone to come. Not everybody feels like that, but the R1 is the one who specifies that. Touches, antennas, and pancakes. Now, depending on the level of expertise of your line judges is how in-depth you're going to want to go in the pre-match. It is a good idea, especially starting off, to refresh people of this information. So with your touches, antennas, and pancakes, just remind them that that comes from both of you. And then the in and down, it comes from both, no matter what side of the court is on, except for about 3 feet near the other line judge's line. And the out signals is on your lines only. So being specific about that is helpful, and it keeps people in their mindset. The coffin corner. So that corner that you might have an in call and an out call, train your brain for that. Just know that if it's close to your line, no matter where it is, you give the signal and let the R1 hash out the information. Now, sometimes I have to make sure that there's not going to be a lot of I love from the L1. So I ask, who's my L1? And then I'll say, just know that the timing of my eyes a lot of times is if you're looking at your signal, when I see you out of my periphery and when I'm scanning to the other side, we might miss eyes. A lot of times that I will come back, but you want to make them feel that you do see them, but you might not be staring directly at them. And a lot of times you will make your way back to them. So the touch, be 100% on the touches. If you don't have a call and you're not sure, don't guess, don't make the call. And also don't mimic the other line judge's touch call just because you want to show confirmation. Sometimes, hold on. Now, this is one of the things where the line judges can put their capes on, is stay away, engaged when the ball goes away, because you can save the day. It might be a situation where it ricochets off that person's body at the end, like the player in the back, or it might be a bang bang on the side. And the line judge on that side, whose line it is, has to get their eyes to the line because the other line judge can't help with that. But where a line judge can help is with balls that go away and they are able to see that touch off somebody when the other line judge's eyes have gone to the line. And no need to fake a fix. If there's somebody that's unruly, or a coach, a player, someone that's saying something that's inappropriate, you don't need to come up and act like you're fixing an antenna. Just come up and tell one of us, and just know that at that point, something's going to be done about it. Whether it's going to be a card or it's going to be a situation with the fans, but we're going to take care of it because we have your back at all times. And then you just talk about the exit strategy. And this is not just with the line judge. You talk about the exit strategy with all of your crew. So you all know how to meet and then get out quickly. All right. And as we continue, secondary signals, bang, bang at the antenna. If you're still looking at them is probably when you'll expect that secondary signal. Now, some R1s might not get annoyed if the person gives a secondary signal each time. I'm one of those people. If you want to get a secondary signal each time because you're practicing, more information, the better to me. I just want to make sure that when I'm also looking at you, that's when you make sure you have that information for me, because then I'm in need, right? And I haven't signaled yet. And then the in and touch signal. I'm pretty sure this is universal, or if it's just in college, it's just the in. And if it happens to be overruled where it's an out, but I also have a touch, that it's on the arm. Okay, hold on one second. All right. And then non-verbals. So for the example that I give as a non-verbal, it's for the pancake situation and the balls that are going to go down. A lot of times you're working for angle and we want them to make great movements just like an athlete, but also not to leave your home base too long, so where you miss the next call. So in getting that movement, sometimes we don't properly get there and you might not be able to see it. So one of the things that for me as an R1, when I do see it up, a lot of times I'm giving a nod. Or if I'm not sure, I'm going to be looking, and understand that when I'm looking is when I'm definitely going to rely on your information. But just know that if I give a nod, that doesn't mean that if you see it down that you don't give it. Still give it to me down. And then I'm going to give you the timing of when I want you to put that signal away. So, and this is what specificity is needed for, because a lot of times when a line judge gives a call, they're like, how long do I hold it? Oh my gosh, I'm so uncomfortable here. She hasn't looked at me yet. I'm just going to put it away. So you want to make sure that you've pre-matched this so they feel comfortable that you both are on the same page. So with the shake of my head, a lot of times I'll just go no. If I'll give you the eye and go no, or I might give you the safe signal. It could be seen as a wave off, but it's really that we're good. And also, if we get to the next play and you have to make a call, you'll obviously have to put your signal away. So I don't want you to be so disengaged that you're so set on me taking your signal that we miss what the call is for the next play. We could always get together afterwards and discuss that you had a signal, and we can be retroactive in that respect. But I definitely don't want the person to shy away just because I've nodded. But at the same time, if I'm looking here and you're on this side of me, I might not see you until I come back. That's why I need you to hold it for a little while. Then I'll ask them, what are some of your nonverbals? Do you nod when you see the ball is up? Do you shake your head if you don't have a call? Like if I'm looking at you for a touch, do you go, I don't have one? Or do you do nothing? This is good information, because then I could know, especially in a touch situation, whether you had an angle on it, whether you were sure, whether in a pancake it was up and you're nodding, or you didn't have an angle because you're doing nothing. By knowing whether you give me these kind of nonverbals, it gives me a little bit more information. That's not saying change your style up. If you don't give any of these things, that gives me information as well. That means it just rests solely on me gathering the context clues from everybody else. But if you do, it also tells me something depending on your angle. And we talk about, in talking about angles, there might be an overrule. So an overrule situation, a lot of times if it goes away, and let's say you're looking, but you don't give me the nod like you have it up, then I might say, they don't have the angle. And I might, at that point, if somebody else calls it down, take that information. Or if my R2 is in a better angle and they have something different than you, then a lot of times I am going to take the information of the person who has the open look. And in the overrule, I just want you to let it go and engage in the next play, because we've got to move forward and not dwell, right? These are some of the self-talk I tell myself all the time too. Let that play go, because if I don't let that play go, I'm going to miss the next play. And the self overrule. There's some times where you've just been like, in, out, no, I mean in, oh crap. So it's one of those situations, it's like, hold on, let me get it back together. And this is my call, right? So I want a person to feel confident enough to say, oh, I might not have the greatest signal, but this is my signal now. Or if I'm not totally sure and ended up with something wrong, here's how I'm going to communicate this to you. And what I ask them to do is turn your body towards me, use the hand that's opposite the coaches and the benches, and sometimes put it on your heart, like, can I come talk to you? So it's not just I've got big eyes, because sometimes I'll have big eyes too, and we'll be big eyeing each other, and I don't know what you need. But that is one of the ways that people do that. But with COVID, sometimes we've got masks. I sometimes wear glasses. I can't see the big eyes. So I need a little more than that. And sometimes it's a matter of step towards me off the line and go, can I talk to you? And then I'll have a conference. About clarity, right? And again, this is my practices. It's not across the board. What your R1 says to do, please do that. Or what your assigners say to do, please do that. And in the post-match, I value all feedback. To me, the R1 leads with that. They welcome in that feedback and they make it a safe space to communicate. So I communicate this. I value your feedback. I'm going to want your information to know what we could have done better to be a better team, or to have made this match better. So floor crew, we don't ignore anybody, right? We're all a team. The R2 meets with the ball and floor crew, floor wipers. We're going to thank them. There's never a shortage of thank yous. And ask questions, find out. They want to share some of their information. Who's done this before? Who are my floor wipers today? Who's the ball crew? And then find out if they're doing double duty, because sometimes people are short on staff, not just in the high school level, probably, and even in Division I college, sometimes there's just not enough people. And they also sometimes haven't gotten COVID tested. I'm not sure what the protocols are going to be, but that means there's going to be less people on the floor able to interact with the athletes who have been tested, or they just want less exposure. So in terms of prioritizing, we want to make sure that sweat is wiped up. A lot of times now we're just making sure that the athletes are the only one touching their towels. They grab the towel and they're the ones wiping up. But if there are floor wipers, that they come out and do that. But you could also still throw the ball to your partner or throw the ball to the next server and go do that as well. But we don't want them so caught up on wiping the ball that they're just like, oh, people are needing to have the floor wiped up and nobody's there. So you want to just express to them that one of the words of the day is initiative. Please go ahead as floor wipers, take that initiative to go up. See those nonverbal cues of a player going down and trying to wipe the floor with their own hands, calling for a towel. If they call for a towel, you also go out there with your equipment to wipe up. Sometimes they'll do the feet scrape. You want to get them cued into what the player is doing so they can jump ahead of that. And also know that when that player goes down, and these are the things that I tell my floor wipers, that it's going to be an increased frequency. When they go down and they do that once, watch them, because when they dive, you're going to have to go out there, and it might be every time after that, and just go ahead and take that initiative and get out there with them. And then this is a little thing. I let them know that I'm also on the stand for you. So if you have any questions, go ahead and ask that of me. I'll be right here with you. I also might turn around and just wave you on the floor to help us out. And I also, if you have a broom or a piece of equipment that is out on the floor, I'm going to ask you to move it back so it's not in the playable area. And hopefully they'll get that in their mind so I won't have to do that in the game and draw attention to them. All right. So you could see how this is very specific, right? But it doesn't have to take long. And then you just thank them in advance for their help. Now, as we go to the coin toss, we have some communication with you and your R1 are out there. In COVID, a lot of times we're standing now facing one another versus side by side. But again, do what makes you feel comfortable. The R1 will cover the ground rules of the court. Also, the timeout length, media timeouts, if there's CRS, and if there's television who we're waiting for. And the reason why I bring in floor wipe requests now, especially in COVID, is that I'm going to say your towels are on the side. You're going to have to grab them yourselves because we're not going to want to touch them and risk any extra exposure. So they're right there for you. And if we will have floor wipers, you'll have floor wipers, just raise your hand or ask nicely to call them out and we'll get them out there for you. So they're cued into that. And then just ask the R2 if they have anything to add. And then of course the coin toss, the visitor calls. And then with the COVID, we don't know if there's going to be choices to switch sides. So it might just be serve or receive. Now with your coaches, they might take our introduction to the coaches out, but for right now, it's still there. The R2 is going to hand the lineup sheet to the coach and let them know they're serving and receiving. Sometimes the coaches have their own lineup sheet, which is fine. And then the R1, as you guys team up with one another, is going to talk about the ground rules in terms of the playable area, any overhead obstructions. Also, if there's special promotions, make sure that they're aware of that. A lot of times if there's special promotions, and we've talked about it with the event manager, I ask that the event manager goes and have they informed the coaches already. And then at the pre-match with the coaches, I might remind them, or I won't if the event manager is also already taking care of it. And media times out if we have them or not, and the length. And then the R2 will go back with them if there's any extra thing that they're involved in. And a lot of times I'll walk with them to the monitor if they want to look at the angles that are on the screen. And I also remind them about the green card, this little green card here, that I'm going to need them to pick it up and show me, even though I'm over there already, that it's just a protocol in order to queue up things that they have to show the green card to me, and then they can put it back down. And then when they submit their lineups, again, this is collegiate, that if there's at the 3-minute mark when they turn it in, I have to ask permission if they are okay with releasing their lineup in numerical order to the media. And then be very aware of this, and this is across the board, no matter what level you work. Equal time with the coaches. Sometimes you'll have a chatty coach over here and a one that's just watching you be chatty. Believe you me, they notice. And that doesn't mean they want to have extra time with you, but that they don't like that you're having extra time with them. So even though this person might not be chatty and this person's taking a little bit more time, I will do my best when I get over to this coach to spend some time with them and to even just ask them a couple questions or only if I've spent time over here, because this coach usually taking my time. Usually I just want to be quick, precise, approachable, give information and get away. And the same with this side, especially with COVID. But just make sure that if this person is taking a lot of your time, that this person will probably notice. So you don't want to short them of their time, and just try to be equal and try to be short and efficient. Pre-match, nitty gritty, R1, R2. Sometimes this is not going to happen in the locker room. Sometimes it's going to happen out on the court, especially if you have to be out on the floor earlier, if you've got media or any other situation, or just depending on your arrival time. And sometimes if we're not going to show up dressed, you spend time changing and you'll have your pre-match with your line judges in the locker room. But if you can have this pre-match earlier, it's great, but sometimes you'll just do it on the floor. If you want to talk about matchups, you want to talk about tendencies of coaches. If there's an assistant coach, that is the rotation king or queen, right? If there's ones that like to both jump up and talk with you, if there is something that happened in the match before where there is a yellow card, or a situation that happened in the match prior with this team, if there was some sort of controversy or something that they're extra sensitive to that occurred maybe in the last game, where if there was a protest situation or just anything that you can glean from their last game, their last match, or their last time they played this team, it can be helpful, because you want to get ahead of those situations and be sensitive to maybe if this coach is on a losing streak and this game will get them into a possible playoff running, or not being last in the conference, or claiming their first place spot. The only reason why you want to know that is because of the temperature of where the coach could go, and getting your mind prepared what you possibly could manage, because each game is their livelihood. They're leaving their livelihood in the performance of teenagers. But sometimes it comes down to a win-loss record. Not to say you're going to make any calls differently, but you're going to also maybe have to manage emotions differently and more and understand what's on the line for them, so you can be patient and prepared. Ground rules, you cover with one another. Sometimes we walk the gym together. And a lot of times you want to do this before, of course, you have the pre-match coin toss. We want to talk about if the ball goes behind the R1 and the ball goes behind the R2. So I'll ask the question if I'm the R2. If the R1's not initiating this information, I'll ask, if the ball goes behind you, what would you like to do? For me as the R1, I'm providing the information. If I turn my head and I follow the ball, give me first crack at the whistle. If I'm watching ball handling and I don't make a whistle, react to my non-reaction, and please blow that whistle if you see the ball clearly crossing the center line. As R2, if I'm charging the pole and my eyes are on you, you've got everything behind me. And same as the R1, if I'm ducking, getting out of the way, it's all you. So this is as specific as you want to be with these situations. Double whistles at the net, or double whistles, it's usually at the net. So if there's double nets, as the R1, I'm going to take the R2's information and I'm going to decide which one happened first. With headsets, of course, it makes it a lot easier because we could just communicate and figure out what happened. And then the R1 can take the lead. But also if we have a double whistle and the R1 is premature on their whistle, such as I can't hold my whistle of the person hitting the net on my side, which I'm guilty of, I'm sure we're all guilty of. And some people are used to working alone all summer during a lot of the club season. So they're not used to having the R2 blow their whistle on the nets. So sometimes it's just like, just know that if you blew your whistle and it's the same net, or I want you to give the information as if it was yours, and act like I didn't even blow my whistle as the R1. So just take the lead on that. Okay. And if we see that we have different information and it requires us to come together, we'll do that really quick. So the timing, and we are talking about the nets on offense. And I also precursor this with, as the R2, please don't not blow a net because you believe that it's my call. Please don't just pass on a clear violation, because to me, it's the game and players first. And it's our egos and, and our relationship. Sure, that's important, but it's always the game and the players first. Let's just get it right. Let's put our egos to the side and get it right. And then the antenna situation of, if I don't blow my antenna, please blow it. But if there's also a bang bang at the antenna and I'm the R2, I'm going to get to fault side for my whistle. Just know that if it's still unclear, or a lot of times you're on one side and you're making your way over, and I will say it's off this team. And then if you don't give the signal, I will lead you, if that's what you'd like. But a lot of times I'm going to give them an opportunity by saying, getting to the fault side first, saying it's off of them. And then I'm still going to wait for the order for you to point, award point, and I'm going to mimic. I'm going to do my best to do that. But if they're still looking at me and it's bang, bang, and it's still kind of crazy, I will lead you. And fault side we talked about. And then it's game first, we covered. And then the help calls. I ask as the R1, if I'm screened out, if it's going away from me, please give me something that I cannot see. And don't also let me miss anything that's obvious. If it's something, and like I had the first play of the game, I have a pass into the plane of the net, but it falls short. And the setter is going to set it from low because it started to drop. And then the person's blocking almost a pass, like a really quick play where it was in the plane. And I just brain farted. It was the first time that it happened, first play, and I did not call the over. It was like almost a bump over on that second one, and the person's over, and we're like, yeah, what a great play. They're all cheering. And I was like, hold on, that wasn't supposed to happen. And I'm sure the R2 was like, I shouldn't have to give this. That was so darn obvious. But I'm like, give it to me. If I'm about to miss something, give it to me and I'll decipher whether I'm going to take it or not. Understand as well, if you're calling down and you're stepping up and out and you're sure, or if you have a libero situation where they're the ones that set it from in front of the attack line, and then I don't blow it by the time we're hearing the roars, give me like a 2-second count and put a whistle on that. Not saying it should happen like that. And for me as the R2, I'm going to give it and I'm going to step out and I'm going to step out again. On that second step out, if you still do not see me and I'm 100% sure, that's when I'll give a help and I'll blow my whistle. But I'm going to do my darndest to make sure that my partner sees me so that I'm the one that does not have to blow my whistle on the R1's calls. So huddling at the R1 stand, sometimes this has to happen, and you want to be very specific with your information and answer the questions guided by your R1 when they ask you, what did you see, right? And just understand that when I'm R1, I'll say to my R2, if you want to come talk to me, you do not have to ask my permission, okay? You could just come across. But understand, I also let them know, and I've been in this situation as the R2, though you've told me that, sometimes I'm going to want to ask permission because I'm just going to want to stand there and ask to come over just because that situation might warrant me having you call me over, because I also don't know how convicted you are with your call. And if you're just like, no, we're not entertaining this, then I don't want to just come over and insert myself without your permission. So there might be times where I still might ask, even though you've said it's okay for me to come over. And from experience, I pre-match this depending on who my partner is, so they can also feel comfortable with knowing that I said I would call you over and you just come right over. But sometimes that's not actually what happens in the game. And you've got to figure out each situation and get a beat on what's going to be appropriate for that time period. So R1, now you've had those coaches that yell across the court at the R1 for the timeout, or they give it subtly to them and they don't even look at you over here. Or maybe you're on the other side and you're engaged in a substitution or something. So if the R1 can see the timeout, I ask them to give me to hold it up and put it on my side and then still allow me to look at them and blow my whistle versus the R1 just blowing my whistle for the timeout. I ask for that latitude. So the benches, turn my back, have my back, but I ask for me to be able to distinguish in my domain as the R2, that if I'm talking to the coach, please let me be the one to request the card if it's on that coach. Now, if it's something I don't see and it's a behavior that needs to be addressed or a card that I did not see, then by all means do it. But if I'm sitting there addressing it, or I see somebody pop up and I'm addressing them, then let me be the one, if it's too much for my comfort level, to request the card. But again, if I turn my back or if it's behind my back, you have my back. So I also, as the R2, make sure that when I recenter with you and we're, before the back end, that sometimes I might not recenter, that I'm going to probably step back. I might still be in my scan, because those coaches that will sneak up on you and right before the person's about to back in, they want the timeout then. And then who becomes the one that missed the timeout? You as the R2. And now there's this situation that you're butting heads, because the coach is never wrong, right? And we're not going to win by making the coach wrong. All right. So one of the things I say is, R2, I might not scan with you. I might not recenter with you. That doesn't mean I'm not ready. I'm just going to step back and just check the beat of my benches, and I might not need to engage with them a little longer. So I left some space in between headsets because I don't know if a lot of you are using them. Please, Dana or anyone in the chat, if there's things that people are popping up that they want to ask right away, especially about something that I'm addressing, feel free to chime in, but there will be time for questions at the end as well. So just real quick to gleam on these, if you guys are going to start, or some of you probably already have used headsets, just know that they don't replace signals, that you still got to do them. Sometimes I'm like down, down, down in my headset, and I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to step out and actually show my down signals so the person can see it. And I'm not just relying on my voice, right? Or touch, like at the end of the play, I'm saying touch, 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 but really we want to show a touch, and we want to show it large if you have it, just in case the line judges don't, right? And I'm talking about just real clear verbiage. You want to know which one you're going to say. If they're behind the line on the takeoff as a back row attacker, that you're going to say, are you going to say clear? Are you going to say good? And I'll just so they know, and I'll say it clear. And a lot of times I'll say that one time. If the net shakes and it's the hair, I will say hair. If it is a situation where I need a call from you, I will repeat it 3 times. So if it's down, 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 touch, 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 a lot of times the microphone or the headsets don't pick up your first word, but it'll pick up your second and third word. So you want to make sure to be very clear and confident with these calls so that your R1 will make the call and take your information. Now, I also say as the R2 in these headsets, if I have them, that use me as your middle person to communicate your message. It puts things so at ease for me. One of the hardest jobs for the R2 is this person up there is making all the calls, but you're the one having to explain them, and you're the one catching the heat if it's not necessarily a call that the coach likes. So if you have an angle and you can tell me what you saw, and in your words, I can communicate in your words what you saw versus using my own. And that can be helpful as well, because I'm right here. And a lot of times the coach feels comfortable that they're being heard, because I'm like, they're hearing me right now. They're hearing you right now. And then just a little bit about CRS and headsets, that they come in handy. We don't have to go into much detail about that, but some of the things that we glean from that we use the headsets for is clarifying before we accept a challenge, that if it was the attacker being in front of the line, if they were below the height of the net when they contacted the ball, in terms of the ball being below the height of the net. And that's what we're going to not want to know. So, because that's not challengeable in terms of the ball height. And also one of the things that can be in my ear when I'm going to that monitor, as you guys, if you were watching the final match or any of the semis, that when I'm walking across, making that long walk, doing it directly, but also we're talking. Where did you see that touch? What's your feeling on that? Is it the person in the back row? They can give me the information so I know to make sure to check those things at the monitor. So yeah, you guys are going to be like, yeah, I want headsets all the time. Good for you. All right, moving forward. So table crew, scorer and libero tracker. You have a great table crew, you're going to have a smooth match. How do you help that, right? I ask a lot of questions. I ask, how do you want to work in terms of subs? Do you just want me to get out of the way, or do you want me to call out numbers? So I'm here to accommodate what they want. What is it that you do when you're ready? Do you give me a nod? Does someone say, got it? So these are the things I'm going to be listening for. And then I'll also encourage that the more information, the better. I love to hear your voice. Double subs. So if we have 2 subs or 2 on one side, how do I know you have both? Do you say you got both? Or sometimes if I don't hear that they have both, I'll say, do you have both? I will ask. And then I'll get their response. And then after asking what they need from me, I let them know what my preferences are. So at subs, I like to know at 8, because a lot of times I'll have that coach that gives me that look, and that's usually the feeling at 8 o'clock, at 8 subs is when they'll want to know, and I'll also love to have that information for them. And then how to handle a wrong server out of rotation and libero fixes. I let them know that if it's something we can get to, I can fix it on one time and only have to give a delay without having to be able to prevent an infraction or a red card. So if they can give me that information sooner than later, great. And then I can figure out what to do with it. And I also let them know before we move forward, if you have any uneasy feeling, before you communicate with one another, stop and grab me. If you're uneasy, grab me, because we only have a time frame to fix certain things. So it's okay to take a second, because if we have to hash it out later, it could take a lot longer. So let's take care of it together. And I give them examples of some of the requests that I might make of them, because we have like a short time and it can be a loud gym. So I might say something like, I might ask my next 3 servers, I'm just trying to get my front row. I might ask who my current server is, which is different than my 3 servers. Or I might ask who my next server is. I might ask where my libero is in the back row, just so I can get a relation as to where they're standing right now. And I also will just ask of them to, basically it's rotational things. And so I want them to be able to respond to me quickly, and also not be surprised by my lingo, right? And then I give an overview of how I'm going to work. And that puts them at ease, because then they don't feel, they have no questions. I'm going to say that after I check my lineup, I'm going to make sure that you have the same lineup on the court before I start. I'm going to make sure after every timeout that you all are ready before I resume. I'm going to, at timeouts, I'm going to ask for the information, checking the substitutions, verifying the score, seeing the number of timeouts left, and if my libero's in and out. Please, at that time, also double check that information when we come out into the court, because though I ask that if the libero's in and out, if you see that they're not, let me know right away and we can switch them, and then we can not have to have any kind of penalty. Okay, just basically double check me. Though I'm on top of it, just know that I also need somebody to help me, and then we can work as a team and we can make a better match together. So I tell them I'm going to verify the lineups and check with them, and then the timeout info is what we just went over. And then I also double check with them after the timeouts. Is there anything I can do better for you? Do I need to slow? How's my pace on subs for you? And so I check with them to see if there's anything that they want to correct with me without them having to come and tell me. I seek that information so they feel comfortable in sharing it with me. Clock operator. Usually this person you don't have to interact with a lot, but sometimes you do. If you're going to stop a timeout early, because a lot of games, they might not have media timeouts, that you're going to want them to know what your signal is, so they don't just look at you like, huh? So you're going to want, I say, I'm going to do this, which means stop the clock and hit the horn. And at that point, we're going to resume the game. So, and usually if it's under 15 though, we probably will let it go to 0. But if I turn around still and I give you one of these signals, just go ahead and we'll stop the timeout and hit that horn for me. Okay. Media timeouts. I talked to them about queuing that up for me and letting me know at 14th and 7 if they can let me know. And I say, if you all could work together on this, that would be great. Because a lot of times I'm waiting for the horn to signal this timeout for the media. And I know that might not happen in a lot of other games, but there might be televised games at any level where you might have media and it's at the 15th or 8th point. Understanding also that put the point on the board first if there's a switching sides, and then sound buzzer for the media timeout. And then I also let them know as in between sets 2 and 3 that we'll need a 3-minute horn if there is a 5-minute intermission. If we go all the way through with 3 minutes, then just good luck on getting a bathroom break. And then we need to work together, have the crew work together. I find out where the announcer's sitting. If the scorer could be close to them and they get information from one another, great. But I want them to get in that mindset also of that they're here as a team and to help each other out, which a lot of them do anyways. And then I find out where my stats are and my play-by-play is. And I make sure I talk with them so I'm not lost if a situation comes up where I need that information and I've got a table that's 28 feet long and I'm like, where are they? So I will go and find them. I'll introduce myself and I'll say, these are examples of some information I may need from you, which is I might need to double check the score. And do you guys keep subs in your stats? Sometimes they don't. So I know that I can't find out whether they had a legal substitution or not. So I won't even go over there and ask them that information. But I will need that verification of score most likely. And then this is another thing. If we have media talent, red hat, monitor operation, just make sure you introduce yourselves to everybody, find out what their role is, and that will help assist you in what you'll need to do when communicating information. A lot of times a stat person might need that information of who netted, who the fault was on. So sometimes you'll have to just hold up your number a little longer or remember it in your head so you can give it to them. And a lot of times after I look at the monitor and if I do have a net and I get that information, I'm communicating. It was on 4 white and I'm communicating that with them because I know that's the information that they need. Now we move on to during the match. There's no shortage of please and thank yous. And we talk about what might happen during the match if the players forget that they can request that information and then the R1's about to go and the person's like doing their feet. I'll just say, please put your hand up. I might need you to put your hand up and let us know that you need somebody to come out. So I just might have to remind the players during the match that that's a way to get our attention and also to get the floor wipers out there. And then for your partners, when huddling that specific information, give the information that your R1's asking for, no more than what they need, but sometimes they might ask you, what did you see? Be just very clear with them. The R1 might have to ask, did you see this? Did you see the antenna? Did you see the ball hit the antenna? And if it's a no and you had an antenna call, then I'll know that you saw the hand that hit the antenna. I also can ask that, but be aware of where your microphones are. Okay, there might be microphones really close to you, so you have to be very careful with the information that you provide and that you're saying that, and also your language, because there's someone watching at all times and you can always be overheard. And then I talk about during the match, we go over our checklist when I get to the table, which we talked about: sub count, verifying the score, and the timeout count, and the libero, whether they're in or out. Bench personnel. So during the match, you might have to address the bench personnel. And it can be a situation of subs leaking out onto the court. Try to fix that early. So when I do my scan, before I start the match, I see that they're back a little bit. If I have to communicate on a timeout and find my sub captain, I call them, the person that standing at the end, I try to get their number and I say, could you do me a big favor? I know you guys are really excited and you're starting to leak a little out. Could you use the 3-point line as your guide and keep everybody in for me? And if you're giving them, you're empowering them to take charge of their team. And then I'll make eye contact with you if I need that from you, okay? But I trust that you'll be able to do that for me. And then usually they're really great on helping out. And if you, because you don't want to always be whistling and blowing them back. People are going to be like, gosh, they're so, the R2 is so concerned about this. They're not even getting their calls right, right? You don't want to draw that attention to yourself. So try to fix it at times that are settled, but you also want to make sure that they're not getting in the way and it's looking like your match is all sloppy. And then you might have to address the personnel of the coach, one coach at a time. Don't even talk with them if they have two up. Use your body language. I'm stepping back and I go, I need one of you only. The other person needs to get back. Yes, that assertive voice comes out. But in those situations, you just might have to deal with it because that's our rule, right? So you just say one at a time. And then make sure you help take, with your body language, you can help control that. And then that distance. So I sometimes check with my line judge. And if the coach is kind of closer, they're standing too close to my line judge, I say, are you okay? And they'll go, yeah, for now, So you want to have that beat of what your line judges need, because sometimes that coach creeps up or gets too close to them where they can't move and they can't get a good angle on the balls that they're supposed to be judging. And that is a rule, of course, too, that they also step back, but you also don't want them to stand too close to your line judge. You want to make sure your line judges are protected and the person's not like in their ear. So also with that, it's just, coach, can you help me out? Before the whistle, I just, could you back away from this line? This is our guide. And so during the match as well, we are, oh my, time is flying, right? You might have to address behavior. You might have to address judgment calls. I just want to put these things in your mind of the way that you're going to be doing this and the way that you're going to be communicating your body language around this, that you want the coach to talk to you and not yell across the court. And then captains, they're one of your resources on timeouts. They can help you with, hey, captain, can you help bring your team out a little quicker? Cards that one of you is going to have to call the captain over. And then if the coach has a question, you can go, hey, your captain can go ask that for you. And then we talk about delays and how to address those. Just know that you're going to have to possibly address them as a warning before you actually use your yellow card. Do your best to use your communication first before we put ourselves in a box by a yellow card, next one having to be a red. And then the libero switches, that if they come in on that back line, get to that early. Hey, help me out, go in between the end line and the attack line. And then how you're going to address outer rotations, that you can get that information quickly and be specific with your information with the coach. A lot of times if I see an outer rotation, I'll whistle it. I'm going directly to the coach and saying number 3 needs to be in front of number 5, and then have them fix it. Requesting cards, blowing your whistle is the R2. A lot of times I'm in my mic, I'm saying, hey, yellow card, and I forget, blow your whistle, yellow card, okay? And then self-talk, your reminders to yourself. These are just some tips that I could give you that have been helpful for me, and I've gotten them from other people, a lot of my mentors that have helped me along the way. One of them is Paula Martin, who gave me check the numbers of the front row on the serving team. So, and serve receive, sure, I'm getting my lineup on the serve receive, making sure they're not out of rotation, but I'm also getting the 3 numbers that are in the front row on the other side, because they're going to be my receivers on the side out. Where are my setters? In my headset or in my brain? Setters front row on my left, both setters up. Where's my libero? So I know that when the ball's in play, is my libero the one digging with her hands in front of the attack line? Okay. Play at the net. I have to self-talk. Sometimes I get an R1 mentality when I'm in the R2 and I'm looking at ball handling. No, the R1 has the ball handling and whether the ball's in the plane. You have the net. So remind yourself, I've got net. I'm looking at the net. And then I'm also whether it was contacted. And then the R1 can judge plane and ball handling. And sometimes if I'm the R1, I'm getting them telling, oh my gosh, they're about to clobber the net. And then I miss a angle. Stay focused on your job. And then also bench and player reactions. Sometimes you're centering so much. I want to look good. We got to do this together. Boom. But then you realize I just missed the player shouting through the net at the other person. I just missed the coach yelling at my line judge, and my line judge now can't say anything. And it's just like, great, what can I do? And they don't want to come and tell on them, but even though we've pregame, please come tell us. So understand that, sure, your signals are important, but what's most important is game management. And you've got to You'll get burned once, don't get burned again. That, you know, if it was a heated play and they disagree with something, that you want to get a beat on what their reactions are and how they're treating your crew. And then post-match, R1 guides, you make it a safe atmosphere. Be specific in your call up the specific situations. I bring up my calls, and then also give your feedback, right? And then encourage feedback. If your table crew joined you, address them first so they can leave afterwards. Ask if the R2 has any feedback for them, and if they have any feedback for the R2. And then make sure you get your data collection sheet for CRS. Also involve your crew, so you request their input. A lot of times I'll do that in my specific situation, ask what their feelings are. And also just have integrity, knowing that whatever's said in the post-match, bring it up there before you just go tell on people into the assigner. You don't want them to be a surprise, like you tell them something in there and then it wasn't even mentioned. You tell them the assigner stuff and it wasn't even mentioned in your post-match. Be direct, have that integrity. And then have courage and be kind. Be good to people along the way, because you will be remembered more for your kindness than any level of success you could possibly attain. Any questions?
Not yet. I'm gonna clean this in.
All right, yeah, we can open up for questions for a couple minutes. Kaili, amazing job. And so, yeah, with that, did anybody have questions? You can either put that in the chat or you can unmute yourself.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
it. We're talking in that about getting the headsets. Yeah, there's different kinds. Just so you know, you don't have to go way up on the price. I find that the ones that I use, my Max Quals, the sound quality to them, they don't skip out on the first word, and that's one of the most affordable on the Amazon site. But just know if that you buy two, that you only can use two. You want to get the whole set. If you're planning to have the score keeper on there, if you're planning to have line judges, no, you need to buy the set that can sync, because if you buy just the two, they'll put in the instructions that a lot of times you can't sync those with others. So if you're going to get the whole group, get them together for the Max Quals. Other ones like the Yapalongs or the Vaqueros, if you buy compatible ones, they can sync up with each other's. Just know that I'm going to maybe look in, I'm still trying to decide whether I want to upgrade mine. I'm hoping that facilities will eventually provide them for us, and we'll just have to have our own headsets that are universal. Sorry, I know I just was jumping in on the chat. What else?
Oh, that's great. That's great. And right now we just have a lot of thank yous and loved your presentation. So that's a great thing.
Great.
Any other questions? While she's in volleyball mode, because I know we have staff camp coming up this week, so we'll be in basketball mode.
Yeah, right. I'll see you on Thursday.
Yeah.
No, but lovely then. If you guys have any question, please reach out to Dana. She will forward that to me. I'm happy to get an email or answer questions throughout the season if you have something for me. But it's great to go through your leader first, of course. But I'm here for you if you need something, and I'm really excited to just help as much as possible. And may you go out there and lead with intention, have a great mindset and a great attitude, and just pull your teams together and enjoy yourselves. Really take in the moment and be present.
Well, Kaili or KK, whichever you prefer, I am so glad that you did this for us, and you're now part of the NMOA family. So know that that's a lifetime commitment.
Yeah, it is a
so
lifetime.
I said it the other day, we're a little bit like the mafia in that way, but in the best of ways. So welcome to the family, and you were awesome. And I really do appreciate you doing this for us and making our officials even better than they already are, and they're pretty awesome. So thank you again. And like she said, if you've got any questions that come up later, feel free to shoot those my way and I will get them to her.
All right, we'll log off and you'll log back on for our third and final session. And again, KK, thank you, and we'll see you later this week.
You're welcome. See you then. Bye, everyone.
Bye.